Welcome to the Triple P podcast, Preds, Pucks, Pinoys, hosted by Justin Bradford and Matt Best.
Hello and welcome to Triple P, Preds, Pucks, Pinoys. Justin Bradford and Matt Best. And hey, it's been a while since we've talked to you, but you know, there's been a lot that's been going on, and we've hit you with a lot of podcasts lately, and had a little bit of time, a little bit of a break, but it's time to do a quick free agency recap. We didn't do it yesterday because we figured there could be some more things going. And hey, the Preds did make another re-signing at the time of this recording, but we're going to just jump right into things here, Matt. We knew it was not going to be an overly active day for the Nashville Predators because of multiple things. While yes, they did have cap space, that cap space has to be used to re-sign other players that are RFAs at that status and a UFA in Mikael Gladland, and then potentially have some of that cap space left over for when they want to re-sign potentially Mattias Ekholm, Philip Forsberg, to have that carry over, because granted that wouldn't kick in until the next season, but have that flexibility to carry over, or if they want to make moves during the season. So we knew it was not going to be an active day. I think the number one thing we knew was probably going to happen was backup goaltender. That's the thing that everybody's like, okay, just waiting to see who it's going to be. And then mixed things happening on the Granlund front, where first it was reported that he was not re-signing. Then immediately after free agency started, he did. And it was the kind of thing, too. I think it was like test open market, see what kind of phone calls he gets. He probably didn't get exactly what he wanted. And boom, it's like, okay, Preds, I'm good. Just wanted to do that quick little double check on things. And then everything else is depth signing. So we knew this is going to happen. And if you're out there, folks, and you thought there was going to be a big splash, I'm so sorry that you thought that. Because I think most people knew there was not going to be big. This is not the big splash time. They didn't need to be a big splash. If they're going through quote unquote competitive rebuild, they have to let the young guys get some playing time. And we saw other teams get better in the division. Chicago's stacking up. Dallas, obviously, their blue line is pretty stable right now as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what this division plan plays out. But Matt, as always, go to you for your take nationally on things and how people are kind of viewing what the Predators did and who maybe some of the big winners on free agency were, especially right after the draft like this.
So to look at it from like a Toronto perspective, going into Nashville, also different microphone, so be prepared for me to sound like an air traffic controller for this whole episode and probably the next 2 or 3 episodes. Mikael Granlund's contract, viewed around the league and around the media specter right now, is that's a lot of money and a lot of term, and it kind of doesn't make sense. This move makes sense 2 years down the line when the Predators are ready to actually contend on a year-in, year-out basis. They could probably contend this year, and they might be able to contend, but when they're actually bona fide, yeah, they can contend. When it's the legitimate run-it-back mode. It feels like the run-it-back train is gone. That's done and over with based on some of the moves that we've seen so far. $5 million to Mikael Granlund is a lot of money per year. And I mean, you look at the grand scheme of things and you go, well, Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene make 8. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't compare 2 bad contracts to one kind of contract. And this isn't to dump on Mikael Granlund. It's just to say it feels like it's the wrong time for him. You and I projected that he was probably going to get 4.5, and we were hoping it wouldn't be to the Preds because that seemed a little pricey. $5 million is a lot. Not to mention he's going not to take away a roster spot, because I think he is a top 6 player. He deserves a top 6 spot, so he's not really taking away a spot. He's just getting rid of an opportunity. Mm-hmm. A guy like Rem Pitlick is not going to get a shot. Cody Glass, instead of being able to blossom into a top 6 center, is now going to be shuttled down that depth chart. Oh no, the dog has her toys. This is going to be fun. What a fun episode we're going to have here. Guys like Phil Tomasino aren't going to get that power play time that perhaps Mikael Granlund will be taking from him, kind of thing. It's just an extra body, which is a good body, but he's taking away kind of this, not youth movement, but just prime roster spots from the youth that need the time on ice.
Now here's the other thing too, because we know this. Granlund could play on the wing as well.
Dog.
There could be that opportunity as well, that he's playing on the wing. Granted, it was nice to see him go back to where he feels more natural, and I think that is at center position, because he basically started out, whether it was under Peter Laviolette or John Hines, under the wing. And so now with him getting the chance at center, I feel like he looked more comfortable out there. He looked more confident as well, playing center and mixing it up, going towards the net as well. You saw that confidence brooding a little bit more from him as a center too, because he felt more in control, and he did help the young guys around him get better. So Philip Tomasino as well, you bring him up. I still don't see him coming in as a center. I think they're going to start him off as wing, just because that's what most teams do, because the stress and the pressure. Cody Glass, absolutely right on that it makes it towards going to be a little more difficult for him unless Granlund does slot back over to the wing. That Cody Glass would be the third line centers, which you're most likely looking at there, which at least for a center, at least he's going to get playing time. Unlike other prospects that might be on the wing, get buried, at least as a center, you're still earning time taking faceoffs, doing a lot of those things that they want to see you defensively responsible in the zone and trying to do the right things as well as a prospect too. So I see that there, but yeah, you're right with the contract mostly the term. I think contract, people are like, okay, well, at least there's money to spend. That's why they made some of these trades, because they had some money to spend. It's the term. If it had been 3 years, okay, 2 years would have been prime. That would have been great, because then you're not stuck as much. You're like, okay, well, it ends next year. No need to buy out or anything like that. It's going to be over soon. 4 years, David Pohl has signed some bad 4-year deals.
It just feels like such weird timing. You look at
it does.
Doggy, it's okay, Wolf. You look at the UFAs that are going to expire in 4 years' time. Johansson will be off the books by then. Granlund's contract will also be off the books by then. The only contract that's really out there towards that time is Roman Josi. Matt Duchene's will be around there at the same time. And you're still paying Kyle Turris for a ton of years, by the way. It just feels like it's such weird timing. I feel as if David Poyle is seeing it this way. Philip Forsberg will re-sign 2022-23 is what he's putting his eggs in his basket for. Then he has that 2 to 3 year competitive window that he thinks the Preds will be in from 2023 to about 2025 is like based on his contracts that he has right now in front of him. Because that's when you have Ryan Johansson for those last 2 years. That's when you have Matt Duchene for those last 3. But I also think it could be, and it just might be, smart asset management. Because what if Philip Forsberg doesn't resign, and then towards those end of the last 2 years of Mikael Granlund, he outperforms his $5 million contract? What if the cap starts going up again, and it's not a hard cap anymore? Those are the kind of things where I'll give Poyle the benefit of the doubt. It just feels like there's way too much risk compared to the reward that is already known with Mikael Granlund already.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is the one issue there too. And we don't have much to talk about because it's just basically Granlund and Riddick. And
Big Save Dave. Yeah.
Big Save Dave. But with the Granlund thing too, if anything, I'll say this, at least he did make the players around him better, because he's one of the few that stepped up to perform and stepped up to the plate when he was needed. And he finally looked comfortable in the system.
I can let this dog out, so give me like 2 seconds. Roxy, you're ruining the podcast. We doing it live.
So Matt having some issues with his dogs there, having to let them out.
I'm gonna have to let him in a second too.
And if you're watching, you see the full Asian household of bamboo and everything else behind him, and all the different plants.
That's what it is.
On him with his nice gaming chair as well. Is that Clorox on the floor?
Yeah, I gotta put that into the garage. I haven't had time to do anything today.
Is it to clean up the dead body?
Dead bodies. Plural.
That's why you have like Clorox. 8 gallons of Clorox.
Hey, when it's on sale, it's on sale.
Oh my goodness. Okay, what was I saying? Okay, yeah. with Granlund, it's just going to be interesting to see what happens, say, in 2 years from now, when you want Philip Tomasino and Cody Glass to be your centers and everything as well. That changes a lot of the ways you're going to have to look at this in development camp. Okay, Big Save Dave, David Riddick, backup goaltender, and this is one of those ones like, sure, whatever, because it's the backup goaltending spot. There's only so many moves you can make with the backup goaltending spot, and it is not one of those things where they brought him in to challenge Justus Saros to push him to be better. No, he was brought in to play 15 to 20% max of the games next season. It's
a 1-year contract, $1.25 million. This, if it was a challenge Saros kind of contract, it'd be 2 years. It'd be multi-years for sure. Yep. Dave Riddick he can get hot and be elite. I will say that. A lot of goalies can't get hot and be elite, but Riddick, he's like a 6'3" guy. He's not the fattest dude with like what you'd want to see in a goalie, but he's a steady goaltender. In Calgary, when called upon, there was many stretches where he was the reason why that team was winning games. Like just flat out, he was winning them games. Not even like had to be average. He was just above average. In Toronto, he was not good whatsoever, just kind of abysmal. But it's the last 3 years of Big Save Dave in Calgary, especially his first like full season there. That's the Dave Riddick that people thought, wow, he is challenging for number one. Wow, could he be this breakout player? I don't think he could be, and I never thought he would be. He's a solid 1B. I think his max potential is 1B, playing about 30% of the games is like the absolute best. And the worst case scenario, it's not like you're calling upon journeyman blah 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 to be your backup goaltender or 40-year-old so and so to be your backup goaltender. At least with Big Save Dave, if UC Saros goes down, you kind of feel not super safe, but you're like, this is a viable option. And the way the Preds play too, I think Dave Riddick will fit in quite well.
Yeah, and we look at this as well, like you said, 1 year. This is basically because of the personal things that Connor Ingram had to deal with last season. This is the 1 year of like, okay, Connor, we're so glad that you're back, that you're healthy now, that you're playing again. We appreciate you putting in the work and taking care of what you need to take care of. So here's your year to get back on track as well. And hey, if Ingram has a good showing, there's not saying no that he couldn't get a start. If you're having a good showing in Milwaukee as well, because injuries can happen as well, and things have to be changed and adjusted. So this is that window to give Connor Ingram that full-on starters role in Milwaukee, because last year's supposed to be it, but then everything changed and they had to mesh with Chicago for a little bit there. And so this is the chance for Connor Ingram too to really get this stranglehold on his career. And what he wants to do, because I think Ingram could be a solid backup for Sarowski after that, as we're waiting for Askarov.
I think Connor Ingram needs a full season to just reset.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Like mentally, physically, in the game, out of the game kind of thing. He just needs that season away to just focus on his game. I think that'll be good for him. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not saying this is good advice. I'm just saying from the outside looking in, it'll be good for him to just get his career back on track after just taking time for his personal leave and his personal reasons, which is fantastic. Also, sidebar. If you are attacking Robin Leonard, you're a piece of shit. End of sidebar. That's all it is. Just don't be an asshole on social media. That's just absurd. Yeah. But like the way I see Ingram is kind of how I see David Riddick right now. Could be better, could be worse, but should be solid. David Riddick has proved in his career, minus like, I don't know, a handful of games, that he's a below average goalie, but other than that, he's just a very competent backup. Like that's what you want to see. He's the kind of goalie that teams covet, where it's like, a little over $1 million can squeeze you in, and it's not we need to pick up a goalie off waivers kind of deal. You kind of know what you get in Big Save Dave.
You can make a career out of that too. You can absolutely make a career out of being a
Curtis
backup
McElhinney.
goalie. Yeah, for sure. And so Ingram as well, when you think about it, the reason why the Predators did not have their 7th round pick in the NHL draft was traded to Tampa for Connor Ingram. So if Connor Ingram still being a solid starter in Milwaukee, that helps the prospects that are playing in front of him, Milwaukee, be better as well. Still worth a 7th round pick. Mm-hmm. If he only becomes a backup goaltender for the Predators for 2-3 years, still worth a 7th round pick. Overall too. So that's still a smart move by David Poile, because he's still a valuable part of this prospect pool. Even if he wasn't brought in to be a future starter, he's brought in for good goaltending depth, and that's what you need. I mean, if you want your team in the AHL to do well, having solid goaltending is going to go really far with building the confidence of the guys playing in front of him too. Because if he gives your team a chance to win, the forwards and the defensemen that are young and still developing, that gives them a lot of confidence to keep doing the things they need to do as well. And if you have a solid veteran goaltender too, that helps train guys as well, especially defenders, and communication skills, how you communicate with a goaltender, things like that, especially if the goaltender is used to the system you're playing and everything too. It only helps develop everybody as well. So yeah, I like the Riddick signing overall, just because it's just a backup goaltender. And if we're really going to fight about the backup goaltender spot, there's so many other things we could fight about.
Yeah.
When it comes to this.
Kasky Swole wasn't going to be the answer there.
No, he wasn't. He left to go overseas.
Yeah, like, and people before he even made that announcement, it was like, well, he could do it. He played a game. He was in the system. It's like, he wasn't supposed to play games. Whereas David Riddick is an NHL goaltender. It's just, he's not a starting goaltender. My dog can speak the English language to the point where I just heard her basically say "out" when she is outside. So I'm gonna try and take this with me to reduce our downtime on air. What was rate the? Oh, I can just all the way walk over here. I'm still on. Look at this. What would you rate the Granlund signing out of 10?
Out of 10, I'd rate it a 6.
I'd give it a solid 4.5.
Okay.
Just in terms of the money and the timing of it. Like, I think Granlund's a great player. You and I have sung his praises all on our last adventure together. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me, which he gets a below average 4.5. I think his skill is what gets him close to 5. If this was 2 years down the road and they signed with this contract, it'd be an easy 7.5 or 8.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
You doing okay there, bud?
Yeah, we're in.
So, other than that, going on, Predators did qualify and have already signed some of their RFAs. I mean, when it broke on the 27th, they had qualified Davies, Fabro, Jeannot, Olivier, Pitlick, Richard, Saros, Tolvanen. Since then, they've gone ahead and signed Matthew Olivier to a 2-year deal, one way. Richard, another deal, that's a 2-way. And so still waiting, obviously, on some of the big ones, which would be like Fabro, Saros, Tolvanen are some of the big ones, but they have plenty of cap space. There's no worry in there. I think what's going to come down to for a lot of these is going to be the term. And if they're going to want to bridge any of these guys or sign them long term, what I would be hoping for with Saros would be like a 4-year deal.
Yeah, I think Saros' deal has to be long enough that if Askarov doesn't really pan out immediately, like within the first year or two, that you still have UC there. And
Yes.
I mean, he's 26 years old, so if you have him, let's say you sign him right now to a 4-year deal, you have him until age 30, it's pretty good. Goalies around the age of 30 are still getting paid good money. Like, they don't fizzle out that quick anymore. I think with Dante Fabro and Tolvanen is that if they're going to multi-year these guys, I have a weird feeling they're going to multi-year all of them. And just be like, this is the core going forward. Whereas a lot of teams, where a lot of teams will just go, qualifying offer, there you go, that's it. You get 1 year, we'll go again next year, figure it out. But I feel like, for some reason, correct me if I'm wrong, that David Poyle's the kind of guy that just likes to be like, well, this is the new plan, here we go. This is the new core. I've shipped out the old core of all these old guys. I'm now going to lock in my young core, and I have younger prospects coming up. So I'll just have this window as window 1A, and then when Tomasino and like Glass and those guys are due their money, they'll be window 1B.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head right there too, because it's not going to be much fiddling around. And because a question did come in to me on Twitter, just to clarify for some folks too, because when it comes to contracts for any sport, things can get really confusing with terminology and what everything means. You're used to hearing what it means to qualify someone. You're like, okay, cool, they got qualified. Wait, what does it actually mean? So just to quickly, briefly explain this, when a team qualifies a player, they're basically retaining the negotiating rights to that player, saying, we don't want you to leave. We still want you to be with us. We're going to work on this, or you can choose to go to arbitration. So when they do qualify them, they're saying, you're going to get paid at least this is what we're willing to pay you. And that's going to qualify that contract. Okay, folks. But that player then could be like, no, I know I deserve more. I'm going to go to arbitration. I don't like this deal. I don't like the qualified offer that you're giving me. Yeah. And go to arbitration.
And arbitration is just when there is a third party there and they go, well, they bring up comparisons between, well, X player around your age and this same role with the same ice time in the same like kind of team made this much, therefore you make that much. So it could hurt them.
It absolutely could. Most players and teams sign contracts before arbitration. There's been times where they're getting ready to go into the arbitration meeting and they all of a sudden come to a deal. They could be something as simple as, I don't want to say a year because a year is not simple, but something as simple as $250,000 off, and all of a sudden they come to a deal. So don't expect many players go to arbitration, especially out of this. If there's any player that might do arbitration, it's probably going to be closer to one of the Fabro, Tolvanen, or Saros. Those three be the ones that might do arbitration, if anything, too, because they might try to cheap him out a little bit.
I think it'd more be likely,
probably because you don't know how they didn't play him in the playoffs,
and because what's going to happen of the defense market right now too.
Right. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. But that's what that means, folks. Don't worry about anything like that until it gets closer to time. I mean, hell. Remember when Ryan Ellis held out? Yeah, that was a long time ago now when you think about it, but he did hold out and he was late to camp and everything too. That does happen sometimes, but that's going to happen here. Okay. In addition, there are some depth signings that I really am not going to touch on because they're depth signings. And if you're freaking out about some of these two-way deals, please don't. These are meant to be Milwaukee deals. They're two-way contracts. And that reason is because they expect them to be playing in Milwaukee. And maybe if there's 3 injuries, might have to call a guy up that has some NHL time just to fill in a slot for a couple games. But these are not meant to be Nashville Predators players. And I'm talking about all these other guys, like Huff and Tennyson. Those are
Oh,
meant to be
Matty
Milwaukee.
Luff, yeah.
Yeah, those are meant to be AHL guys. Those are meant to be AHL guys because you're having some of the AHL guys come up. Like Carrier is going to be an NHL guy.
Yeah.
There's going to be an open spot. And yeah, you want Ferentz and everything too to be battling for things. Davies is going to be a top defenseman in Milwaukee, but that's what these are for, is those veterans to push some of these guys through camp and in the AHL just to get better and everything too. So please don't freak out about those.
Yeah, like there's depth signings where you look at it and go, oh, they'll compete for a fourth line, and then there's depth signings where you go, oh, they're playing in the AHL, and that's
Right.
all this is. And I mean,
Yeah.
if you're a diehard Milwaukee Admirals fan, then yeah, that you're allowed to have your concerns and stuff
of
here.
course.
But you have to know that some players get signed just to be a warm body on the bench and on a line.
Mhm.
Because they got to make a living, and the team has to ice some players. And it's not to say they're a bad player; it's just you need players to play the game.
Yes, 100%. And I will say, Matt Bernier did ask, similar to that question, made a comment just too about the depth signings, the depth route, instead of trying to stack the deck. And that's absolutely true. They're not stacking the deck. The Predators are not stacking the deck. If I'm given an early prediction, I can't see the Predators finishing higher than third from last in the division right now.
They're going to say third in the division. I was like, what is going on?
Oh, come on, man. You know me better than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that maybe it was a stupid hot take, and that would have been like the worst hot take that you and I have ever come up with. I think.
Do I hot take?
No.
I typically don't.
You do hot pot.
Ha ha! You damn right.
Third from any higher than third from last, I'd be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
It's not to say that it's a bad team. It's just how
competitive rebuild.
How well did everything have to go in order for them to make that playoff push? Like, just
a lot.
The percentage chance, like, we go back to it, less than 1%. That's how right it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't see that happening next year. And that's not me being down on them. It's just kind of being realistic. And honestly, next year is kind of the year you don't want to be that good.
Well, and here's the thing. If anything, thanks, folks, because we get complimented for keeping it real. And it'd be better to keep it real instead of hyping up the hype train.
Oh, my God. Like, obviously, you and I, not that we cheer for them to win, but it's more fun when the home team wins. Everyone knows that.
Well, yeah, of course.
The atmosphere is better around town. The hockey culture is a lot more fun. Like, it's better for revenue. It's better for our show, probably.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'd rather just say it how it is than.
So Matt, there is a contract, though, that I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to get your take on, though.
You're scratching your chin like this is going to be a troll job, so I'm ready.
So the Predators signed 27th overall pick Zachary Lahoud
to a
3-year entry-level contract deal. I mean, that's moving pretty quick to get him signed to his ELC. Now, granted, he's going to play back in the queue, but getting him on a deal means they're expecting a lot out of him pretty soon to get him wrapped up like that already, that they're probably going to be looking to him to make the jump. Not this upcoming season, but the season right after that, or even after his junior season finishes after this year. They want to see what he's made of. They're expecting him to be a pro in the next year and a half.
He honestly might even get those X amount of games this year, too. Just to see like what he's all about. Because, I mean, the one thing that the kid was touted for is his hard work ethic and just hitting the crap out of people and being aggressive. And, I mean, it's not that you can't teach that, but if you excel in that, you're not really going to have another role on the team other than doing that. So it's not like they need to wait for him to be groomed into a scorer or anything. Right. He was one of the most NHL-ready prospects in the draft just because he plays his role, and that's it. There is no more expanding to his game. The reason why he was ranked so high on all those lists is because what you see is what you get. He's polished to what he can be, and that's his skill set. Now he just needs to refine it a bit more. When I saw that entry-level contract, I was like, okay, cool, whatever. We'll see him on the third line next season, full-time, or the fourth line. Like, don't expect him, and we're not going to be singing his praises like he needs to be called up now like we were with Tomasino and we were with Rem Pitlick and those guys and Tolvanen's. Like, he is not so far down on my depth chart, but he's not up there.
All right, so the news that broke right before recording was Zach Werenski signing a 6-year extension with a cap hit of 9.583333. That one puts him, in terms of defensemen, as in terms of the cap hit as the third highest paid defenseman in the league, just ahead of Roman Josi. So you have Erik Karlsson, Drew Doughty, Zach Werenski, Roman Josi, PK Subban, Dougie Hamilton, also at 9, and Cale Makar also at 9. The Cale Makar one, okay. I
like the Cale Makar one. The Cale Makar one's my favorite.
Cale Makar one, yeah. The Dougie Hamilton, damn. The Zach Werenski one, yeah, he's really good. And it shows too they were not going to be able to afford both Jones and Werenski. They're just they weren't going to be able to pull that off. But the value of these defensemen is, like you were saying before with the Fabro thing, is skyrocketing out there. And when you have the New Jersey Devils now having Subban and Hamilton, and that they have $18 million in 2 defensemen, the New Jersey Devils do.
You know what this reminds me of?
Oh boy, what?
The Predators have $16 million in 2 forwards. How badly do the Preds want to ship off one of those contracts?
Oh, so badly.
How badly are the Devils going to want to ship off one of those contracts in the next couple of years?
I mean, is it possible that PK Subban gets traded before the season starts?
It is, but I just don't see it. However, you know what? Out of all the players, the 4 overpaid players we just talked about, the 2 in Nashville, PK Subban, and now Dougie Hamilton, I'd rather have Dougie than any of them on my team, just in a heartbeat. Younger, it's just the one thing about Dougie is, can he be that defenseman, like the elite go-to defenseman on the team? Not in a timeshare with other like good defensemen around, because Carolina was chock full of good ones. It's like you go there now and you are the guy. Like Will Butcher 4 years ago or 3 years ago, people were like, Calder, Norris, like just shouting out all these things. And now Will Butcher's not that great. He's good. He's a bottom pairing defenseman. He's a bottom 4 defenseman at the very best. But now Dougie Hamilton goes to that team, and it's like, you have to be the guy. You have to be the power play 1. You have to be like eating up all the minutes.
Right.
It's just, can he do that at this point in his career? I think he can. So it'll I just think he'll be the contract out of the 4 we just talked about that won't look at the worst.
Yeah, no, I agree in that one. Now, there are some teams still that are not even to the cap floor, and there are still some teams that are well over the cap and still having to make some moves. I mean, it's curious too, because I understand one of them, especially Tampa Bay. I mean, you win back-to-back cups, you're going to be over the cap because you spend a lot of money to win those cups. But Vegas has just been trading everything away. I mean, they just traded Ryan Reeves.
Yep, for a third. Nuts. Crazy.
Rangers. So a good return for Ryan Reeves.
Insane return. Ryan Reeves, he's a fun dude. He plays his role really well, but take away his personality, and you can get a lot of Ryan Reeves in this league.
And you have the Stars and the Blackhawks also projected over, but then you have teams like the Devils, even though they have $18 million in 2 players, you have the Devils still not to the cap floor. The Sabres, obviously they have work to do. The Senators and the Red Wings. So there's still going to be some moves to be made. There's still some moves that are going to happen. And the offseason's shorter. We're almost to August already, and free agency just started. Whereas we're used to free agency starting July 1st-ish. Around that time, we're used to free agency starting. So it's a delay about 20-ish days for free agency to start. That's less time for teams to really figure out what they have. Training camps start in 6 weeks. Training camps start in 6 weeks. Rookies report in 5 weeks. And I know the Predators, per David Poyle, have a development camp starting in the middle of August. So basically is what it's sounding like for Predators rookies is that they'll have a development camp and probably 2 weeks off. Then rookies report for camp, and then vets report to camp. Like, the season's just around the corner, folks. We're the dead zone for hockey is supposed to be about 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
With the free agency starting, you have a couple days of free agency, and then all the major reporters go and take their big long breaks and go to their cabins. All the Canadians, because they have a cabin somehow. It seems like everybody has a cabin.
Cabins and cottages. That's all we have up here.
Yeah, we go to the cottage. Yeah. So, but now it is August coming up in tomorrow by the time you're listening to this.
Wow.
And right, it is coming up on August, and we're just entering free agency. So there's really the dead period's only going to be about a month, and that 3 weeks less of dead zone means a lot less wiggle room for general managers to do a lot of work they typically do. Because the Predators a lot of times will make a random sign in the middle of August of, yeah, we need one more veteran defenseman.
Yeah,
is what will happen.
we need another
So,
Borvietsky. Like, let's bring.
so I'm curious to see what the cap situation. All this is to say, I'm curious to see what the cap situation some of these teams are in, how quickly things might roll now that some of these moves have been made, some of these re-signings and extensions have been made, that some of these teams will have to make moves within the next few days to get rolling so people can have a break of some sort and know what they're supposed to be doing for their off-season training plans. Because some teams have not been in off-season training for that long. Some people much longer than others, but some not as long. And they need to know with training camp being just around the corner, Matt.
Yeah, and I think the one thing too is this year teams are being more transparent about we're leaving X amount of money on the table in order to just have wiggle room. I mean, Kyle Dubas said it recently for the Leafs. He's like, yeah, we have about $3.25 million right now, or 2.35, one of the numbers there. I don't have it at the top of my head. And he's like, we're just going to leave that for now and see what happens, which means they could trade a contract and bring one in. And I think that's kind of the smart thing to do if you're one of those teams that has like $5 million to like no $1 million is to leave some wiggle room there to watch the market, watch teams kind of F themselves and be like, oh, they got to cut bait on that contract. We can take it on, give us some draft picks. Yeah, it's going to be weird to jump right back into hockey. Like, there's no break.
And I always need a break. Okay, before we have to go, give me one or two of what you think were the worst contracts that were signed on free agency day. Or anything resulting in free agency day. So it means things that might have broken before, but I had to wait to make it official on free agency day. Any of those things.
Okay, number one worst contracts, Tony DeAngelo. Like, just getting
Good
signed.
answer.
That getting signed is the worst contract there.
And the way the Hurricanes have handled that has been god awful.
Not good. Number two, the Montreal Canadiens have no scope of PR in their brains whatsoever when they, one, sign he who shall not be named after draft, or not sign him, they draft him, and then they go and bring in known locker room toxic human being Mike Hoffman into the fold. He got traded from a team for being a dick, and now you're going to bring him in after releasing two statements being like, our first step is to just have a better culture here. We're going to surround him with like the top like people in the world kind of thing. Yeah, Mike Hoffman, you free? Want to come score some goals and teach this kid how to be a dick too? And I mean, Hoffman could be a nice guy now, but he has that reputation. And at what point do you go, we need to bring him in? This is the guy we need. He's not the Mike Hoffman of 2-3 years ago where he was scoring goals left, right, and center. He's the Mike Hoffman who struggled to find consistent top six playing time, who wasn't even fantasy relevant in a sense, not last year whatsoever. Those two are the worst. My favorite, I love Braden Point being signed 8 years, $9.5 million. It just shows how Tampa Bay is willing to be like, yeah, all of our eggs are in these guys' basket, and we're not overpaying them. Braden Point at 9.5 doesn't feel like an overpay. Kucherov, Vasilevsky, none of these guys, you look at their contracts and go, that's an overpay. It just seems like it's right for them. And the biggest contract that I'll always go back to is Nathan McKinnon's contract. He's the most underpaid human being in the world in the league based on what he does and everything. So when people bring up, well, look what Nathan McKinnon makes, that's a team-friendly contract. It's no, the salary cap went up a tremendous amount the year after he signed. I bet you McKinnon would love to run that back and do that all over again. But Point is my favorite, $9.5 million. It's just good term, good salary, because that's also in the hopes of the cap going up and up and up.
Sure. So mine, not necessarily awful contract, mine like do getting paid. Ryan Suter. So signs a 4-year deal with the Dallas Stars, and that 4-year deal is worth $14.6 million, including a $1 million signing bonus, and getting paid also by the Minnesota Wild. In terms of the cost, nowhere near as much. But it's crazy to think that his contract was through 28-29.
Nuts.
It's nuts because his contract right now goes through 24-25, which will end when he's 40. Yep. So you add 3 more. This contract is supposed to go to, he was 43, which how many NHLers that are not Jaromir Jagr, Zdeno Chara are playing into their 40s?
Is that with the buyout penalty? Or
No,
is
no.
that...
I'm just saying on the actual cost
Oh my
of
goodness.
what's the cap friendly is the $833,000 per year. But still, you're making $1 million extra per year on top of your other contract.
Yeah,
but
that's not good. I mean, that's great for him.
Yes, that is the buyout penalty. But still,
Yeah.
the buyout penalty is until he's 43. But still, he's playing his contract under contract till 40.
Good for him. That's a man who's making his money until he's 40 or 43 years old.
And imagine how much the Predators fans hate the Dallas Stars and still have hate for Ryan Suter. Now you have Ryan Suter on the Dallas Stars.
Just making mad money, too.
Another fun signing is Corey Perry to Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And the history there with the Predators and Tampa, history of the Predators and Corey Perry. And now the Predators will be playing Corey Perry in yet another outdoor game.
Kind of fun.
Hopefully no one gets hurt, but I will never forget the Corey Perry walk of shame at the Winter Classic that happened so early in the first period.
Oh yeah, and that is a walk of shame too, because it's
walk
not
of
like
shame.
off the rink and in the tunnel. It's
It's
off
uphill.
the rink and then make sure you have your
Uphill.
shoes with you and just keep walking.
Uphill too, like the camera just keeps panning. It's like it takes minutes to get to the locker room.
It's not a
minutes,
good
not
look.
like 10 seconds, but minutes. And so they'll be playing at Nissan Stadium in February, playing each other. So those are my unique signings. Not like bad. Obviously, I agree with the DM's the one, but go ahead.
I've got one more bad one.
Okay.
Show me a universe that we live in where Cody Ceci makes $3.25 million a year. Oh wait, we're in it. Like, what is going on here, Edmonton Oilers? Cody Ceci, 3.25 is a lot of money.
Get paid, boy. Get paid.
That's good for him. 4 years, $13 million, 3.25. Mm-hmm. That organization likes to go, give me the money. Here you go. Just what happens.
All right, folks. Well, if anything big breaking news happens, then obviously we'll be back. I think what we'd consider breaking news would be what? Saros?
Saros re-signing. Tolvanen re-signing, because we could talk forwards then. By re-signing, I mean like multi-year.
Yeah, if it's a simple like accepting the qualifying offer, something like we're not going to do a full episode on that. But if Saros would be the big one, and then we might collect a few others. But either way, we're going to be back next week with an episode. I really need Matt to go see Black Widow so we can talk about that.
Dave, if you're listening, let's go see Black Widow.
So we got to go do that.
Fixed it.
And then, hey, coming up soon is we're going to have What If, the Marvel series coming up. So I know we'll be able to dissect that as well. And we already have a start date, a premiere date for Hawkeye for that new series. And we have the new trailer drop for Shang-Chi. That's coming out in September. So Marvel is back, baby. And I'm so pumped that we have things to talk about. I need Matt to catch up on Bad Batch sometime. He's going to have to watch all those episodes of Bad Batch because I really enjoy that series.
To watch.
You do, but I'm really looking forward to What If because it's going to explore so many different storylines and things. And a lot of the voices, I'd say, yeah, a lot. I don't want to say majority because I don't know yet, but a lot of the voices are of the same character. Like it's the same actor, actress playing the animated version of themselves. I think Chadwick Boseman is playing Black Panther, or is playing T'Challa. Not Black Panther necessarily. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm very curious on that one. And we don't have much of a lull. There's hardly any lulls in Marvel content, which makes me very excited. So we'll continue to talk about that through the off season, and any breaking news that comes up, we'll have you covered too. So Matt, any final words from the plant room?
Stop paying defensemen $3.25 million that don't deserve 3.25. Stop signing pieces of shit too. Just stop doing that. Let them suffer. That's it.
Let them go to Europe.
Yeah, let him go to Europe. And also,
go to Europe.
I hope Josh Hosang does well with the Leafs. I hope he
Me
can
too.
do something. I love Josh Hosang, man. Like,
dude, me too. Like, I know Boyd Farish, a penalty box area too, has had that thing just like me of like, man, I really would like to see what Josh Hosang could really do if he got it together and everything with the right team. I'd love to see that.
Like, it's not even because I'm a Leafs fan. It's just wherever he went that wasn't the Islanders, I would be rooting for him because the Islanders didn't really give him a fair shot. I mean, he did it to himself, yes, but I feel like he earned it back to be like, give me a shot. Let me do something. And now he has a shot. A PTO is something. If he does enough but can't crack the Leafs roster because it's so filled, then he goes somewhere else. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just a Josh Hosang supporter. So that's honestly one of my favorite signings. It's just that he's getting a chance.
Hey, Preds, I'd be okay with him giving him a 1-year deal.
Yep.
To be cheap.
Give him a 1 year.
He's still a prospect when you think about it, because he hasn't been able to have his time. He's still a prospect.
He was a guy that had conversations of you could draft him top 3 in, I think it was the 2014 draft. Was he the 2014? That sounds right.
Gosh, yeah.
But it's just his tools, his skill, all that was there, but it's just the person wasn't there yet.
Right.
Maybe the person's there now. Maybe he can be that guy. I'd love to see it.
It's okay to take a flyer sometimes on people.
Yeah.
But not pieces of shit.
No, stop signing Tony D'Angelo and don't. Dumb.
Anyways, thanks so much, folks, for listening to Preds, Pucks, Pinoys. These are your 2 half Pinoys making 1 full Pinoy. For Matt Best and Justin Bradford, thanks so much for listening to Triple P. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.